All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I would like to start the meeting by establishing that we have a quorum. Don?
Here.
Nicole? Here. Jen? Here. Corby?
Here.
Joe?
Here.
I'm here as well. We officially have a quorum. Nicole, has tonight's meeting been properly noticed? It has. Thank you. And John, could you read our equity framework?
I can. In the Verona area school district, our mission is that each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thriving in a diverse global society, and will lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life. To meet this mission, the Verona area school district will ensure that every individual has access to educational, social, and emotional support they need to feel valued and affirmed in their unique identities and experiences. We acknowledge that inequities and power dynamics exist in our system, such that some individuals, on the basis of their identities, face barriers to accessing the opportunities they need to experience success. In acknowledgement of such, the Verona area school district is committing to disrupting these systems of inequity.
Thank you very much. If we've all had a chance to take a look at tonight's agenda, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? A motion from Nicole. Is there a second? Second from Jen. All in favor signify with aye. 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 Tonight's agenda has been officially adopted. With that, we are going to turn it over to the superintendent right away.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Excited to have everyone today. And this next slide is an indication of I think it's best described as a bittersweet moment for so many in our organization. And that's the recognition of our retirees. And even ask for assistance because we have a video that's going to need to be played at some point during my opening statement. But first, I want to, on behalf of our district, our community, and our Board of Education, thank our retirees for the multitude of years of service. When you think about the literal thousands of students, thousands that you serve over the course of your career, in so many moments on a day-to-day basis. Those one or two interactions, those special moments, those high fives, those hugs when appropriate, then, and most importantly, that access to knowledge. As educators, that is what we take pride in, is providing access to knowledge to allow our students to be able to thrive. And you, our retirees, have done that for a career, and that's just amazing. It's amazing to think of, you know, just the legacy that you've built, because it's not just those students, but those students as well. And they continue to carry on their message. And I guarantee you, there's a student out there somewhere that's identifying you by name and by a circumstance that's happened in their life that they are talking about because of the significant difference that you have made. And so on behalf of our district, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you for being the service leaders that you are. Let's give our retirees a round. So if you we're going to do a short video that recognizes all of our retirees. I think we can do it from here. This one. So this video will be posted on all social media.
Verify questions. I don't answer to you.
That was not from our meeting. I would just like to clarify, that was next in queue. You two, not about us.
Wherever I upset, I apologize. This video will be shared out social media on our websites and will continue to play throughout the remainder of the school year and into the summer. It's just a small token of the appreciation we want to make sure that our full community knows and recognizes all of your service. And when you think about the gifts of our children and the significance of it, just what our students are able to create, we have these phenomenal cutting boards that have each of our retirees' names personally engraved right below the Verona School District logo, as well as our model. That each retiree will receive. We just brought one here as an example of what they will look like, and we'll hand them out shortly after. So not only is it amazing, and you put some great Wisconsin cheese on it as a cutting board, but when you look at the skill set of this very student that we've been talking about that you have served, and be able to do these by hand crafted design and place it in the hands of retirees, these are just a small token, but a great recognition of how quality of students we produce here at the Verona School District and the impact that you've made. So thank you again on behalf of our district, and I'll turn it over to our board if they have any comments for retirees.
I think, as you said, there's students out there who are just right now acknowledging these staff members. As we see the faces and the names, I know that personally, so many of these staff members have directly impacted my life as a parent, my son's life, my life as a board member in so many positive ways. And so the gratitude that we have just beyond words, and it is bittersweet. You would love to talk each one of them to coming back to stay, but I also know the hours and the blood, sweat, and tears literally sometimes put into this job. They deserve nothing but the best.
Oh, I just want to acknowledge the exponential growth with which you referred to, like the impact of all these folks. And I just want to lift up that every single one of them had a deep impact to other staff, actively involved in working with colleagues, supporting new teachers. And so the exponential impact of that and how much the tutelage that you all gave is just, I want to lift that up too. It was really the dedication and service to the full scope of teaching. Thank you.
And I just want to echo the superintendent's comments about kids speaking highly. And I would be remiss if I did not take this public opportunity to thank Mr. Verona. My daughter still speaks very highly of you in high school in regards to her development, particularly math, and it hurt in second grade. It was hard, and I appreciate what you were able to do with her immensely. You are one of the finest teachers I have ever seen, and I am grateful for that.
I also saw your display of the flight simulator at the last community day. I was super bummed to hear that you were retiring right after, because my kindergartner won't have you as a teacher, but I know you're leaving huge shoes to fill. And to Jen's point, thank you for sharing your passion with all the other teachers, because I know this profession is hard. It's rewarding and it's hard. And I know working with amazing other professionals who care about kids is something that helps everybody in the building. So thank you, and thank you to the other retirees for all your contributions.
Yeah, just the same as the parent perspective, just the sense of relief you have in leaving your kids in the care of teachers that you trust, not only with their safety, but with their development and their education. And not to pile on, but I've also had several kids that have sprung on, including one right now who comes home almost every day from school talking about the different flight lessons and how Mr. Gunlock flew over to school in planes and really just so I want to add my appreciation for everything you've done for not just my kids, but for all the kids. Thank you.
I know we always say that the magic happens in the classroom, and I think this is a great reminder that while maybe the magic won't be happening in our classroom, the magic that was created in those classrooms will continue on beyond our walls here. And so we are deeply grateful for all of the time that our retirees have given us and our students. Thank you.
So as we transition, I want to say a personal thank you to not only Mr. Gunlock, who's here, but also Ms. Sarah Greenlaw, who's here in the audience. As a new superintendent, you know, you got to earn trust, and you got to earn your way into a space where people have partner with you. These two came out right away, and we're willing partners, both as far as the staff advisory, as far as the strategic framework, as far as really working with VAEA, and just having just real sincere conversations about education. So thank you for that opportunity to learn and grow with you. I would be remiss if I didn't think I became a better leader because I had the chance to be involved and be next to you. So thank you both so much for everything that you bring into my personal transition into the superintendency. There's a lot of ways it could have gone, but it's gone in my eyes really well, and it's a lot to attribute to the way staff of you have allowed us to partner together. So thank you both. All right, I don't want to do anything else. So next we have the Verona School District Climate Survey presentation, and joining us for that would be Ms. Marcy Piper Soderboom, our Public Information Officer, and on the screen we have a representative from our partners with the Hanover Research Group.
Hello, everybody. Year 2 of the Hanover Research Climate Survey in the books. But really, it's just getting started because it gives us a wealth of resources and data for us to use throughout the district and throughout the year. So Hanover Research has joined us, and I'm going to let them take it away and go through our data.
Just really quick, I should have said this when I opened up there for our retiree and representative. We will not be offended if you have to go throughout the night at any time. We don't take that personally, but we want to make sure we recognize you first, and we will have a great board meeting ahead of us. But I just want to, we would not take offense to that at all. Sorry.
That's no problem. All right, we'll start out hearing from Dr. Watkins.
All righty. Well, thank you all. I'll jump in. It's nice to see you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to join you this evening. I'll do brief introductions and overview on our part. My name is Mary Kate Taylor, and I am the Senior Relationship Director who manages Verona's membership with Hanover. And I work with all of our members in Wisconsin and nearby states in the region. And I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Dr. Sean Watkins, and he serves as the district's content director. So really working to oversee all of the custom research projects that we complete on behalf of the district through our partnership. So just a brief overview for those of you who are unfamiliar, we are a custom research and professional services firm that has worked with over 700 school districts, regional education service agencies, state associations and departments of education, and independent schools across the country, working to provide mixed methods, custom research, advisory services, and professional development. So we've partnered with the district since last year, since 2022, and have been working closely with Marcy to design, administer, and analyze your annual climate survey. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. And with that, I'll pass it to Sean so that way we can dive into this year's results.
Hi, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be speaking with you all tonight. We'll dive right in. So this year we surveyed 3,448 folks, which is down a little bit from last year where we were at about 3,900 individuals. So the key objectives for this survey is to describe community members' perceptions of the current school climate in the district, compare the perceptions of school climate across different community groups, and compare results to the previous survey administration. So just like Marcy said, this is the second year that we've been able to do this with you all. The survey was administered online in March and April of 2023 using Qualtrics. Again, 3,448 participants joined us in the survey. The qualifications to take the survey were students, staff, parents, and community members. And just a note, we had the main survey for parents, staff, and community members along with students in grades 6 and above. And we had a modified version for grades 3 through 5. And just to give you a brief overview of the demographics of the participants of the survey, you can see here that there was a good about equal percentage of folks from elementary and high school, a little bit less from middle, less from K-8, and then only 1% from pre-K. And you can see in the bottom there, the percentages of students, staff, and parents. And you can see that elementary, K-8, middle school, and high, the vast majority were students. So it's a great opportunity to add student voice to your initiatives in the district. So we'll just go through some of the constructs from the survey and take a look at some of the trends that we saw. So the first item is around school building environment. I feel my child feels safe at school, sponsored events and activities. So this is percentage agree or strongly agree. So one of the things that we'll see throughout the presentation tonight is a slight difference between students and staff and parents. And I think that's worth exploring a little bit more in the future. But you see here, 66% of the students feel safe at school, 79% for staff and parents, et cetera, with safe at school sponsored events, provides a safe learning space for students, and does not have issues with violence or theft. And this was another finding that I think is worth taking a closer look at. It's one of the things with surveys, you get a lot of really great information, but often you'll get more questions as well. And that's something that we can speak a little bit more towards the end around ways that we can support you all in diving in a little bit deeper. But you see there's a difference between students and staff versus parents here around does not have issues with violence or theft. Okay. And I can't see the screen on your screen very well, so I'm looking at my own version of the PowerPoint. I think we're in sync still. So school building environment, students at my school, students at my child's school. Again, you see the differences between students, staff, and parents here. Feel welcome at school, feel like they belong at school. And so you see quite a difference between where students are versus staff and parents. This isn't incredibly unusual, especially in this kind of, if you want to call it a post-pandemic, whatever you'd like to call it, world that we're in right now. There are students that are struggling throughout the country, and a lot of districts are finding ways to better support them. My school, my child's school, is well maintained. It's actually pretty good with all the respondents here as compared to other districts that we have worked with. Has classroom environments that support student learning is also fairly good in comparison to other districts too. We can move to the next one. So another item to look a little bit more closely into social environment, the percentage of students / staff who experience bullying or harassment only a few times a year or almost never based on their religion, disability, sex, political beliefs, race, ethnicity, or skin color, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, physical appearance. You can see a pretty big difference between students and staff as compared to last year. This looks a little bit better, so there has been some improvement, which is good, but still some more additional support and more investigation is probably necessary with this category. And then this next slide, adults at my school, adults at my child's school, care about students, respect students, fairly enforce school rules, consistently enforce school rules. So you see, again, the same types of differences between respondents. The fairly enforced school rules are closer together and consistently enforce school rules. So again, that's probably an area that more research is necessary to see what's going on. So academic environment, my school, my child's school provides enough technology resources, which I think this is really great to see, especially in the world that we're in now. Strongly agree. Want students to succeed, provides enough material resources, provides a well-rounded curriculum, a little bit lower with these results, but not similar to what we see at other school districts, sets high expectations for student achievement and adequately challenges advanced students. So some areas for further investigation again, but overall, we have some positive items here too. And then the school's districts develop students' ability to collaborate with others. You can see staff and parents feel that this is more accurate. Critical thinking skills, listening skills, ability to engage in self-reflection, ability to empathize with others. This is something that's come up quite a bit in schools throughout the country. Sort of thinking about how to support students and their relationship with other students, essentially. So this is not unusual, but something definitely to perhaps look into. Sense of moral and ethical conduct, ability to manage emotions, again, fairly low with students, ability to resolve conflict. So I look at this as an opportunity to add additional student voice to perhaps with some qualitative research to dive a little bit deeper into these findings. So students' attitudes and engagement. Most students at my school work hard, come to class prepared, get excited to learn new things, are motivated to learn, enjoy learning. So these are pretty vast differences between students and staff. And again, our recommendation would be to take a closer look and to really dive into what's going on here. It often is a fairly complicated situation that's happening in students' lives and how the perceptions around feeling supported. And sometimes it's a matter of either miscommunication or misalignment. And there are some easy low-hanging fruit to kind of address some of these issues.
Hey, Marcy. Sorry, just to confirm, I think we had this question last time and I forgot the answer. When they say most students at my school, are we to assume that the student is weighing in on themselves or is weighing in on their peers?
Their peers.
Okay,
So it's not that I experienced this. It's how do.
students can think they work hard, but their peers do not. Is that an accurate statement?
They could, or they could think both. They could think neither are working, they're not working hard and their peers aren't working hard. But it definitely includes their peers.
And is there a reason to ask about the perception of others as opposed to the student's own perception? Wouldn't we want to find out how students perceive the experience of school themselves personally?
Yeah, I'll bounce that one over to Dr. Watkins. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, so the sort of asking about most students. I think it's a little bit with it's a little bit how the students interpret the question, right? This is a way to get a large sort of sample of sort of thinking about the larger community, which is the emphasis of the culture and climate survey is mostly about that larger community. I think my recommendation, if we wanted to dig in a little bit more in that, would maybe do some qualitative, maybe interviews with students or focus groups, that sort of thing, to get into how folks feel about their own sort of standing in the school. But it's something that I could talk to my survey team about to see if we could add some additional questions around how they feel about themselves, if you all feel like that would be helpful.
Yeah, I find this just as confusing and ambiguous as the one last year. Actually, I would prefer if it says other students at my school, or whether we're asking about them or other kids. I feel like most students is very ambiguous, so I don't actually know if I'm interpreting that they find this about themselves, or if it's and, or if it's or. As being presented to it a second year in a row, I think I still find it a little ambiguous. So maybe just kind of narrowing that down would be super helpful, because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to draw from this.
Yeah, I just want to add, and it's something that I can talk with our team about, and we can talk internally. This survey is a survey that we use with many of our districts, and it's been validated over the years. So we found it to be impactful as well as fairly accurate with the information that we gather from districts and students in particular, but it's definitely, we're always flexible and open to kind of looking at better ways to connect in order to, you know, make this impactful, right? The important thing is that you all can use this to better the student experience. So we can talk a little bit more with our survey team and see if we can perhaps narrow down some of those questions, or perhaps we can talk a little bit more with Marcy and team around, you know, exactly what we should better be getting at with student attitudes towards engagement and that sort of thing. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds totally reasonable.
Okay, I'll just take that note.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to skip a slide on schedule here. I think to board member Lapidari's point, when you're asking about the experience of others, and then you do that across demographic lines, that's really difficult to ascertain a response, because the same people in the same space of different, let's just say race, can have a very different experience in the same space. And so I don't really necessarily have the context of that lived experience unless you're asking specifically how I am navigating this space, or how I feel in this space. So I think as we think about, I'm agreeing that as we think about how to move deeper into our assessment of the student experience, how do we make sure that it's their student experience? And it's not to say that their perceptions of others is not important, but I think you can get mired if you're working across demographic lines a little bit.
I think that makes sense.
You said it much better. I think that's the core of it.
Well, and I think there's a lot of ways to disaggregate it, because I also feel at the very beginning, we're sort of at least drawing attention to the number of respondents we've had at the various grade levels, but then this is just the holistic. And I know there's going to be more detailed information shared with sites, but how does this look, right? How does this, even just slide 20 look if I'm at the high school versus at the middle school versus a kindergarten or a third grader, I should say. So you didn't,
Marshall, speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
These are all wonderful points, and I think, at Hanover we really emphasize mixed methods in terms of being able to fully tell the story of students and staff and parents' experiences. And so this is just one tool. It's surveys, you're able to talk to a lot of individuals, so you get a large sort of breadth of information, but sometimes it's not as detailed as we want. And so, that follow-up research can also be really enlightening. Especially, as I said earlier, just trying to get the student voice, hearing from the students directly about their experiences can be so powerful too. Okay. Just to keep moving on, I want to make sure we're good on time. Please, so community inclusiveness, please indicate how much you agree or disagree or agree with the following statements. The district engages the community, so we're split down from staff and the parents, effectively communicates with community members, responds to community members' questions or concerns, is transparent with community members about district decision-making. This is something that districts can sometimes struggle with a little bit. And so these numbers are actually fairly positive. Parents effectively communicates with parents, 70%, engages parents, responds to parents' questions or concerns, is transparent with parents about district decision-making.
I should have asked this earlier, but how similar was the survey this time to last time? Because I keep looking at these and wanting to go, oh, so what was it last year? Because I remember last year we were sort of trapped in this, well, it's sort of a first time snapshot, and won't it be great when we can compare this, to a previous year?
Yeah, by design, it's about 99.9% the same survey as last year. We took out a question that Dr. Clardy's point was asking people to assess whether other groups of people had adequate support and resources. We took that one out. And we added a question for OE11, and we added a question that we hoped would help us dig deeper for OE9.
Was a qualitative analysis done last year as well?
Are we gonna get a chance to see the data comparison this year, last year?
We're about to get there.
So we wanted to keep this presentation fairly narrow because we knew we didn't have a lot of time. And we know that you all are going to be diving very deeply into this over the coming weeks. So these are really great questions. So some of it's coming now, but also it sounds like you'll have opportunities to dig in even more. And so comparing last year to this year, I couldn't tell if someone was talking. It's probably me. So how positive or negative is your overall impression of the culture and climate at Verona? And so this is looking at staff. This is specific questions that you all ask that are unique as compared to our other surveys. So this connects to OE 4.1. The superintendent will maintain an organizational culture that positively impacts the ability of staff to responsibly perform their jobs and allow them to work in an environment characterized by professional support and courtesy. And then indicator 1, the district survey staff on culture and climate on an annual basis, and at least 60% of staff who respond report a positive culture and climate. So we have 65% this year report a positive culture and climate, which represents a 15% increase from the previous year. So that's a really great finding. Obviously, still more work to be done. We want to see that be a little bit higher, but good progress. Please indicate how much you disagree or agree with the following statement. Verona has a culture of two-way communication. So we have this at 52%. This connects with OE 9.1. The superintendent will assure the timely flow of information, appropriate input, and strategic two-way communication between the district and the public that builds understanding and support for district efforts. And then indicator 1, Verona completed the development of a family engagement survey. So year 1, the results of the family and community survey in the spring of 2022 indicate 65% of families agree that the district has a culture of two-way communication. And then with these results, 52% of respondents agree or strongly agree that the district has a culture of two-way communication compared to 54% last year. So that's not really a huge change. So it's basically stayed the same from last year. So again, opportunities to improve. And this is something that a lot of the districts I work with, struggle in a day and age where there's lots and lots of communication. It can be difficult to connect with staff and other participants as well. So it's something that a lot of folks are working on. How informed do you feel about the direction of the district? So parents are 30%, staff 48%. So OE 9.1, the superintendent will assure the timely flow of information, appropriate input, and strategic two-way communication between the district and the public that builds understanding and support for district efforts. Indicator 2, utilizing a community-based survey, at least 65% of respondents will express that they were adequately informed about the direction of the district. So again, 30% of parents and 48% of staff respondents report that they were adequately or extremely informed about the district's direction compared to 37% of parents last year and 36% of staff. So parents have gone down a little bit, and we've had an uptick with staff compared to last year. And then thinking back through, this was new for this year, thinking back through emails, social media posts, newspaper articles, meetings, and other communications you may have received from the school district, which of these items have you heard about in the past school year? So we go through referendum and district financial information, mission statement, strategic framework, district-wide goal, equity statement, journey of a lifelong learner, other, and then none of the above. So this is the first year that we've collected this information. So it's a good baseline. None of the above is the largest at 48%. So obviously progress can be made here. It's an opportunity to, again, better connect with the community. And so, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna add to that, that the reason we wanted to add this was because we have this general question, how informed you feel about the direction of the district? And maybe someone doesn't know, oh, when we talk about the mission statement and the strategic framework, those things are all things that we consider to be informing the people about the direction of the district. So we thought, well, let's see what people are familiar with. So that's why we wanted to collect this, give us a little more depth in our knowledge of what folks are hearing from us.
Marcy, was there also a question on the types of channels that people use? Because this 48% of none of the above, like, just as a parent in general, sometimes I'm like, okay, VASD is a lot of communication. And then I'm like, good. So I would love to understand, like, I can't imagine a world where, as a parent who has email, I don't hear about one of these things, but maybe that's because I'm biasing myself towards having access to email all the time. So do we have a question on there that says my primary channel, or I have access to email, social media, newspaper?
So we undertook a communications audit.
Yeah.
And we will be. Sorry, I got distracted. We undertook a communications audit and we will have that information for you shortly. It does go into that. However, I think we really need to think about, we emailed a communications audit to people who had to read an email to respond to the communication. So the people who responded said, I get all my information through email. Well, that, right?
Oh, yeah.
About that.
Yeah.
But we asked about how you get your information, what forms, where do you get information in general? How do you want to be receiving information? So we will have that for you and we'll cross-reference that with this to develop our overall communication plan.
Thank you.
And it's a struggle. I mean, you know, from my experience, you know, what folks want versus what they have the capacity for as well is sometimes different. I know as a parent, keeping track, even as someone in education, that has been in education for a long time, it can be difficult to keep track of all these things. So really meeting folks where they're at is challenging. And talking to Marcy, it sounds like you all are really diving into this and you know, trying to improve those lines of communication. Okay, so just to dive into one of the recommendations that we had, and we're going to focus around communication. So this is good, good conversation. So our recommendation from Hanover is that the district improves its communication with parents and community members with particular attention towards improving transparency regarding district decision-making. While survey results indicate improved ratings regarding the district's communication with both parents and general community, so 72% agreement that the district leaders communicated a strong vision for the district, up from 67% last year. An area that necessitates further review is transparency and communication regarding district decision-making, with only 35% of respondents feeling adequately informed about the direction of the district, down from 37% last year. And just over half of respondents, 52%, agreeing that the district has a culture of two-way communication, which was down from 54% last year. By attending to parent and community members' concerns in this area, the district may be able to also address concerns regarding the extent to which they feel engaged with the district and their children's school, and the extent to which they feel that the district is in tune with the response and responsive to their needs and concerns. And you can see some of that data comparison on the bottom there. And with that, I'll turn it over to Marcy.
So thinking about our next steps, we provided access to the climate survey data for all of our principals and associate principals to ensure they can access the data dashboard. This is really designed to be used as a dashboard where you can navigate around, disaggregate by many different groups, and dive deeply into the data at the school level. We'll be completing and sharing a climate survey infographic with the public that will mirror some of the information shared here today. We talked a little bit about our communications audit and wanting to cross-reference what we talked about today with that. And then consulting internally, some of the things that Dr. Watkins brought up, and then looking at our systems how does the climate survey timeline match or not match the continuous improvement planning cycle so that we are sure that this data isn't showing up too early or too late in that process, that it can be useful for schools. And how can we maximize this use of data? And then consulting with Hanover, I love to ask Sean nerdy data questions, so he puts up with me, looking at things like, are these the percentages we should be aiming for? And I know, the board has grappled with that for a lot of different indicators. And how do we know that? Should they be higher? Should they be lower? And then if we can consider administering a brief version of the climate survey in fall, so that we would have 2 data points. So schools can even, see within a given year how things are changing, to give them a better sense of, what's going on with their students, their staff, and their families. And I think the overall point and the overall point of this presentation is just to demonstrate the wealth of data and information that we have at our disposal. We focused on OE9 tonight and communications a lot tonight, just as an example of how we can use that data. You'll hear in Dr. Hawkins' report on OE11 tonight, they'll refer to a data point from a question that we added to the survey this year. Tracy will be talking about OE10 and how some of the bullying things and social emotional skills relate. We really want to start using this climate data so it becomes something that we're using throughout the year to measure our progress and understand where we can make changes. So with that, I am certainly happy to attempt to answer any questions you might have.
I was just wondering if you have any way of knowing who doesn't respond to the survey? If there's like a bias in terms of who's responding, other than talk about email or something like that.
Good question. This survey is not tied to a student ID number or anything personally identifiable. We do have voluntary questions on specific characteristics, gender, race and ethnicity, a few other characteristics, so that we can try to look at that, but people don't have to answer those questions if they don't want to.
Sure.
Was there, I thought there was a field where you have to either put your email in or it's tracked to your email. I know it had been raised at the time that there were some concerns that it wasn't fully anonymous.
I know that the survey that was done in the past with a different company had that, and it's where it was tied to an email address or a student ID number, so that you could look at who's responding and how are they responding. But this survey doesn't have that, but others in the past have.
Got it. Thank you.
So the data dashboard that you're able to go to you're able to go to that granular level of detail, race, ethnicity, social, economic background, because I think it's very important when we look at the student data at the very beginning, the differences between its staff and parents. To me, when I saw that, that's kind of alarming. And I think there's a need to get into that granular level of detail to see what's really going on, and then compound that with a qualitative survey to ask those questions about what's going on, and dive deeper into what our students are feeling, because I see a huge difference.
So to build on to that, I have 2 quick questions. Can we have access to that data dashboard, and are we gonna have a workshop like we did last year? Not asking for more meetings, but I did think that workshop was very beneficial just for conversation around the survey, so I was just wondering.
I think it's definitely something we can talk about. We're a little bit careful about school to school comparison and things like that. Just wanting to sort of maintain the integrity of the whole system, but I think it's definitely something we can talk about.
Yeah, I think comparison just from year to year is nice to see. At one time, I know we'll see it in OEs, but if we can see it as when we have the questions about it now, kind of nice to get that. And I am curious about the most students at my school. I'd like to see how that goes, because I think it definitely is gauging 2 different things. And if we're talking about climate, I think even people's internal feelings about their performance is contributing to a climate. I don't know. I'm still struggling with that one. And I think John and I, we talked about this last time too, like,
Yeah.
how would you answer this, you know, like,
If we aggregate everybody's individual feelings, I think we get at it better than
yeah,
we average my impression of your feelings.
right, right,
More bias introduced that way.
right, like, I'm doing a great job at John, I don't know. So I think that's just one that I would circle back on, that I'm not sure.
And I think you got at this a little bit, Marcy, and I remember asking this last year, but I don't remember the specific answer. And in the helpful presentation, the Hanover, I heard lots of references to other districts that we asked the same question, who said this. Do we have official benchmark data that we can compare against to know kind of what is kind of an average answer for a district our size? I know you're not gonna get perfect, benchmarks, but just something to compare.
So we have aggregate information within our portal where we have many schools that have participated in the survey that you can take a look at. Marcy can kind of pull information from that data dashboard to give a comparison to your information that was gathered. So that's part of why we use a more templated, validated survey, so that there's room for comparisons through that dashboard. So it's definitely possible. It's something that we could support you all on.
Speaking for me personally, that's something I'd like to see.
Yeah, that's a great thing to look up, Joe.
And one of the things that we could also potentially support you on as well as we kind of dive more deeply and focus at particular areas, we do a lot of benchmarking reports as well, where we take a look at peer districts, particularly with around, a certain topic that you want to dive into a little bit more to see what other districts are doing to perhaps support students or better communicate with the community, things like that. And so we have a tool, a peer generator tool that we use to build these comparisons out based on a lot of metrics, numbers of different student demographics, population size, et cetera, that we use to build that out. So it's very rigorous in what we do. So as you all are continuing these conversations and you think we need more information about peers, we're happy to do some of that research for you. And it's not only peers, but also if you're looking for aspirant districts as well, so folks who are really successful in a particular area, we can build out reports for you to support those initiatives.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, it would be.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Marcia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean and Mary Kate. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right. Keep pushing through.
Yes.
All right, update from HR and finance with Chad and Rochelle.
Sorry. Oh, that's good. This is not even. No. There's nine. I'm 100%. I was watching the glass bubble behind it. So, hey, everybody.
Hey.
So I have a little update on staff compensation. And then we will probably pass the baton, and I believe we transition right into Pete and I discussing some things related to debt management. And really just state budget update. So I'm gonna just do a brief intro on outcomes and then turn it over to Rochelle. And then we're gonna answer any questions that you have. So we're gonna give an update on our timeline related to compensation in the short term. And then eventually base wage bargaining. We've updated the board that both EAEA, VESPA, and our administrative team, we were best served to wait in terms of what's going on with the state budget. Pete and I have an update on that. Rochelle got us up a proposal to talk to you all tonight
And then we are asking for board permission related to essentially credit for a year of service and the compression solution we've worked on over about the last year. And there will be a board vote at 30. I think we decided, and certainly it's up to Meredith and you. We've got a couple of votes, one for the staff increase and later for the defeasance. Leave it up to you if you guys want to toggle back and forth between superintendent update and board update, or just wait till the board action take off your votes.
So maybe after you on the step update, maybe pause to go into board action, like I'll just.
Yeah, I think it makes sense if we just vote at the end, yeah,
And we, you know,
keep track of everything. That's perfect.
All right. And then I'm just gonna go here and then pass this over to Rochelle. So as a reminder, we're continuing to keep an eye on the budget related to staff compensation, taxes, operating expenses, and how we manage debt. Rochelle is going to talk us through tonight in terms of what our next steps would be with staff compensation. So these are refreshers for the board in terms of where we're sitting with our with budget assumptions baked into next year's budget. And again, we don't have any terribly new news from the last time we updated the school. A reminder as we head towards collective bargaining with carrying roughly 1,000 staff members here in our school district, that each percentage that ends up going into base wage compensation in the end is about a $600,000 increase to our operating budget. The board has seen that. And again, we've got both staff compensation, our long-term debt strategy, and making sure that we can grow in a healthy fashion, all on our mind as we work our way through our staffing and compensation forecast. Tonight, we're going to have the board vote specifically on the staff increase, which is a little different than we've done in the past. I made the recommendation to both Michelle and Dr. Clarity that this is an expense that will go into effect on July 1st. We've been updating the board on a very regular basis on what you're going to see in next year's budget book. But we thought it's like a $1.4 million deal. And more than anything, I think it's a signal that our team, and we're hopeful that the board is in favor of, at the very least, signaling to our staff that they get credit for another year of service related to the steps that are outlined in our hand. Again, related to our budget, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but wanted to give the school board an update on what we know so far as what's happening in the state. The Joint Finance Committee is back in session this week, and they have yet to put an agenda on K-12 spending. So that the best guess, all the folks, the lobbyists, and people tied to our state organizations that are at the Capitol every day would be that the state budget might get on an agenda for next week. And then we would hear at least the first initial proposal as they start to volley things back and forth at the Capitol. So we have a better idea what comes from the Joint Finance Committee, maybe by the end of next week. And now I'm officially going to pass it over to Rochelle and tie those pieces together.
Thank you. So I thought it would be good just to give us a little bit of history when we talk about total compensation for, so I'm going to go back just a couple of years. We've made some significant and wonderful improvements to our salary schedule within these last 2 years. So in the 2021 school year, we worked collaboratively with VAPA and developed a brand new salary schedule that we rolled out in the 21-22 school year 1 year ago. That salary schedule included a 2% step increase, which is what we will be talking about tonight. And with base wage, it became a 2.77 total salary increase. With both of those pieces combined, it moved our school district up to the highest beginning salary increase, which is a huge win. We recognize all of the hard work that our educators do, and it just puts us in a really good spot. During this school year, we made some more great advancements within our salary schedule. We clarified how we place folks on the schedule for years of service. which also impacts compression. We've invested in compression and fixing that years of service for this year, next year, and the following year. We also, with our CPIU, again, committed to having the highest base wage in Dane County and the highest base wage plus steps in recent history, came out to the 6.7 total. A significant increase for our educators. One that we all agree was the right thing. Base wage marketing, I just want to remind everyone here, it is something that we have to step into. We are not in the space to step into base wage marketing just yet. We have committed with our unions that we will begin base wage marketing once the state budget has been finalized. That's our current understanding. Historically, base wage bargaining is CPIU, cost of living adjustments. This year, base wage bargaining is maxed out at a cap of 8%. That is the CPIU that the district is able to go to, and anything above and beyond that, we would have to. But again, we're not talking about base wage bargaining tonight. We are not entering into those conversations, but this is just some information for the next coming months as we potentially start talking.
When that negotiation does that, it'll be retro. That started this year.
Potentially, yeah,
We don't know yet, 'cause that's.
that's it.
Right. But that has been done historically. Yeah.
We're gonna quickly go through a couple of slides. This past spring, we did some outreach to our local districts to do some comparables on what beginning salary and highest earnings are in comparison to other districts in the area. What you will notice is that this is color coordinated or color coded. Green is highest salary, red is lowest salary. What you will see across the top is Verona is green all the way across the top, which means we have the highest beginning salaries for all of our regular employees. Where we're falling short of substitutes. Our substitutes make the least amount in comparison to other employees. Yet, I want to call out the amazing work our substitutes do. We've had the highest fill rates in the area, period. And that is the amazing work that our substitutes do, and I want to recognize. Even this year, we've had multiple days where we've had 100% fill rates. It's the same with last year. In the middle of COVID, we still filled our vacancies. And this really shows how great they are, and it's time to reinvest. This next slide looks at highest earnings potential. And again, you'll notice the green to red color coding. And you can see again, we have the highest salary potential in comparison to all of our districts, except for associates. So what we're recommending, just like Chad said a little bit ago, two pieces. One is we are recommending that we commit to our step increase, advancing our employees for 1 year of additional service, effective July 1st or the beginning of their 2024. We're also committed to, as a part of that process, the compression fix that we verbally agreed to for this year. That total budget increase or amendment is $1.4 million. Steps in compression. It does not take into consideration base wage, which is helpful. Separately, as you saw in those brief slides, our substitute pay needs to be addressed. It hasn't been increased in over 2 years. A market analysis has not been done in many years. What we're recommending is increasing our daily rate for our teacher substitutes by $15 an hour from 135 to 150. That gets us right in alignment with the other districts. And averaging that by hour, that's $2 an hour for our offices. It is a minor budget increase to our sub budget. It's about $100,000. It's 9% of our sub budget. I expect our sub budget continues to trend in a positive direction. The last 2 years with COVID, we really invested a lot in sub budget. I think as we get over that hump of COVID, we will see our sub costs go down, and this is probably in the long run a cost neutral. With that, I'm going to open it up to any questions before we move to the next step.
Just because, well, not just because we're on record, but we just want to make sure this statement is reflected accurately. For highest possible earnings, we're second, right?
it varies a little bit. You can see some of those colors are different, but we're definitely in the top averages.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
Any questions from the board? I think you've given us lots of good information, so I don't see any questions.
But no, you touched on what I was gonna ask, which is what Shelly said was the top. And I saw Madison was first, but then you said Oakland. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay,
So Meredith here would be if you wanted. If others.
let's do that.
Yeah, so at this time, we'd like to temporarily close the superintendent's report and turn it over to board action for consideration.
And put forward, is there a motion to approve the steps and compression of 1,400,000 for the 2023-2024 annual budget? I have a motion from Jen and a second from Nicole. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion has been approved. Thank you.
You, and as we bring Pete up here, just to remind the board, the sub pay discussion, we monitor head nods, monitor the amount of questions we get, and this would be an example of us continuing two-way dialogue and what would be built into our budget that you'll get a chance to see in August. We send to the budget hearing, the meeting later, but we just decided to do a formal vote on the staff.
Sounds good.
And we'll have an update on athletics and coaches compensation here on June 20th, and we'll do a similar deal that we won't ask for board vote, but board feedback. You eventually get to approve the final preliminary budget and the budget we send at the end of the meeting, so you'll get the final stamp. But this is us just having the feedback related to the budget.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chad.
All right, here we are. This should be hopefully this is a little bit of Groundhog's Day because we did this last year. And we have talked to the board twice now about our strategy to continue to manage debt and taxes. That's a little balance I led off with tonight. I had Pete put together just a little slide on our history, our short history in terms of what we've been doing as a district to prepay and manage debt and manage interest expense. And then savings related to that from 2017 to 2021. You can see anywhere between $127,000 and close to $500,000. But we had a big number. We posted in 21 and 22 related to defeasance. And we will eventually, by the time all of the callable debt comes due, see from last year's board move, eventually $4.7 million in interest savings on the high school. Which is, that's a very big chunk of money. And eventually, as we layer that in around our expanding and growing school district, we will all be happy, including our taxpayers, that we made moves in the short term. And we've actually shortened that debt schedule by a year in doing so. So this is not new work to this board or previous boards. And we've got a proposal for you tonight to consider regarding debt management this year. So again, we are tonight talking to you about defeasance. 17, 18, 18, 19, 20, 21, we could prepay that, which means immediately it would be like prepaying on a loan. They take our money and we can see immediate interest savings. The difference with defeasance is they are borrowers and bond issuers set up debt schedules. Where there's only certain times that they'll actually pay our money related to what's called callable debt. And we don't have any callable debt right now. We prepaid all we can prepay, I think all the way out to like 2026. So defeasance, just like we worked with the board last year, we do a set aside account. Last year we did a little over $8 million. This year we're proposing a little less. That money will sit in that account until the debt's callable. Then we make the payment and see the interest savings. This is a repeat of a slide you've seen maybe a month ago or 6 weeks ago. We've been working as a board. Certainly Pete and I have had conversations with Joe relative to this recommendation and really had three options. because we believe we'll have around $12 million in excess related to the operating revenue. We started with 19 million. If we have to keep our mill rate flat, and our levy relatively flat, is to do one of three things. If he's nothing, and then we need to have $12.5 million to do something else with, could be a cash deposit into fund balance. If he's at all, and max out the interest savings, but we're actually not recommending that tonight. We don't know what's going to happen with the state budget. And we would eliminate the possibility of us getting out of the short-term borrowing payment or do something in between. And that's what we're recommending to you tonight. To still leverage some long-term interest savings. But if you're following me, instead of using all $12 million, set aside some of the money we've levied into fund balance. And that in the short term has the ability of us not doing any short-term borrowing. We talked about the possibility of land acquisition related to our growth. That is something we potentially need cash for in the future. And we don't know what's going to happen with the state budget. So it's a kind of a compromise. Let's continue to stay on the path of doing some debt management, but also at the same time hedge our bets until we know what happens with the next year budget cycle.
Can you explain why may hinder land purchases under the cons? Or sorry, put it in. Yeah, why? I thought if we did it in between, we would have more on hand, which would help a land purchase.
That is there mainly because if we go all in on defeasing nothing, we know we would have the available cash for and I don't think this is happening in the short
So
term.
it's more of
But
a ponder at the top.
If 2, 3, or 4 properties were purchased over the next 2 years, we could bump into eventually only 6 and our the limit we set for fund balance.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Good question. All right, so here's our recommendation tonight. We are recommending that we defease $4 million for next year. Pete and I have been at this number. We have had PMA, our financial advisor, look at this and look at this and look at this again. Pete is a master at getting us to a spot that we can calculate where our years going to end up. And also having to look ahead to next year in terms of the low point in our budget cycle, when we'll have to do short-term borrowing, we don't have enough cash on. And Pete believes that setting aside really about $8 million for cash for next year, at least for next year, will get us out of the short-term borrowing. We will have an increased fund balance and not have to pay the dues related to the interest related to short-term borrowing, which is more expensive now. Interest rates are up, and the price of interest, the interest we pay on that short-term loan matters, and the money that Pete gets from us managing the cash we have on hand also pays better returns for us to have in the bank. So our rationale for that compromise, $4 million in defeasance, we eliminate the need next year to do short-term borrowing. We still, if needed, would have a letter of credit available if we get caught in a pinch for next year. So we're not so compromised that we're going to balance paychecks next year. We do believe it would leave us with about $2 million of cash on hand at a low point in revenues and expenditures coming in on the board. And the board should feel really good about the fact that if we vote yes for this tonight, this additional defeasance will equate to another $2 million of interest savings for our taxpayers, which is a really big deal. And in some ways, our community members won't feel this in some ways approval moved by the board for a decade to come when this debt's callable and we're starting to figure out what's happening with new schools in our district related to growth. So we're recommending $4 million in defeasance, and on the back end, that equals about $2 million in interest savings.
You have to remind me again, approximately how much interest do we end up paying for the short-term borrowing? I know you just said interest rates are higher, but if you could just maybe remind me ballpark what that
This last year, we were somewhere around $70,000 or $80,000.
Teacher.
Yeah, and I would also imagine that since interest rates have.
Right.
Right. I, EMA hasn't given me a quote on what it would be, but I would imagine 3 or 4% as opposed to. 0.5%. Yeah, I would guess we'd be around 6 figures for the short-term cash.
Well, and it's so interesting the way I'm recalling some of these conversations and just how frequent and necessary it is for schools to have to do that short-term borrowing, right? Because when the state budget payouts come and all of those pieces, and to be situated in this space that feels like, well, we just kind of have this way that we always have to short-term borrow, and to have all these positive outcomes and all of these other, right, all the pros that you surfaced on that previous slide, and to be able to kind of skip that seemingly icky necessary thing is just, yeah.
For
It's
sure.
so packaged.
And I think it's a good reminder of kind of the definition of fund balance.
Mhm.
Fund balance is a point in time of what we have sitting on hand for kind of liquid assets. But our checking account goes like this throughout the year, and dips to the point of being $8 million negative every year because of how revenues and expenditures are toggled back and forth in each office.
Another point that I think that just to reiterate, when we talk about the reasons, just, you know, we don't talk about it all the time, but I think in the general public, just so there's not some confusion over that, that's payment above and beyond our normal debt payments. So even if, when we say we're defeasing 4 million and that's less than we did last year, it doesn't mean we're not making the same payments on debt. It's just we're not making the same amount of additional payment above and beyond what we have.
Really good point, Joe. Yep, our minimum payment's about $11 million this year. That's already built into this year's budget and will be built into next year's budget.
And maybe to piggyback off that, Joe, to be again, obvious, I guess, but that prepayment is always to principal, right? Which is why the interest gets saved on the back end. Does that part make it? I'm thinking student loan, right? Anytime I wanted to pay extra, I would identify, I want this to come off the principal that I owe, not the interest. Is that a question? I think.
They are interconnected in the world of callable debt.
Okay,
So you're having
Okay.
both of them with the businesses.
okay, thank you. Then that was an okay question for me to answer.
Yeah, good questions. And I think that's important. Again, Joe, I appreciate you highlighting that this is in excess of what our paying off for loans. And I think as we've been very aggressive with loan prepayment. And I think that's been a strength, but it's always been in service of saving interest and saving money. And I think in this financial space, especially the short-term borrowing, I think it's one of the things that we've always done. But it's nice if we don't have to, especially with the interest rates that we're at right now. And I think seeing the tangible savings is really helpful.
Yeah, and we didn't, we could have spent all night talking about this and doing the package and but this also gives us some options down the way. So in the referendum communication, only 30% of folks heard about the referendum. What we have to do the next time, clarity.
But 70%.
We did talk about making sure that we were both very strategic with the short term related to high CPI and staying competitive, but also had played the long game. We are a growing school district, and we aren't interested in a referendum where we're going to see a giant hit on taxes. Having some cash on hand and the prepayment we're doing relative to the current capital that we have will put us in a very nice position that when we do need to expand in a capital fashion, we should be able to do so with little tax impact related to mill rate. Growing tax base, us being aggressive with payment on debt and some cash on hand, really good tools for the school. It's really good spot.
Fantastic. Any additional questions from the board? We move into board action.
So I'd like to close superintendent's report on this section.
For the board, is there a motion authorizing the transfer of funds, the establishment of an escrow account with respect to, and the defeasance of certain of the general obligation corporate purpose bonds, series 2018, dated November 19th, 2018? Motion, was that Corby or Joe? Sorry, Joe. Is there a second? Second from John. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion has been approved. Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you, Chad and Pete. Just want to probably go back 2 slides before we transition over. And you're such a humble board, but when you make a decision like that, that saves our community $2.06 million over the course of maybe a tenure that, we may not all see, but you think about the future of our schools, that's significant. So thank you for your continued strong fiscal management. Thank you for continuing to make decision making that's in service of now and well to our future.
Thank you.
Okay, keep going.
I think keep going.
All right.
Anyone needs to step out individually? We're on.
All right, next we'd like to bring our dynamic academic services team to go on monitoring report OE11. We've been pushing our board late, but we'll try to make a very brief presentation. All right, Dr. Hodges?
Do that.
All right.
Sounded like it's you that's, yeah.
I mean,
Make sure the
don't
conference is full.
hesitate.
I've been put on first tonight.
Any other remote?
So good evening. So tonight we're here to talk about OE11 instructional programs. And so this policy serves to create the conditions and the foundation for the work of academic services. This policy also ensures that all programs of instruction are relevant and challenging for all students to achieve the outcomes that are aligned to the board's results. So tonight, in addition to the information in this monitoring report, all of you all have had a chance to visit our school. And so you've had an opportunity to bear witness to the following leadership. You had a chance to hear about disciplinary literacy. You've had a chance to hear about opportunities and spaces for collaboration. You've had a chance to see and hear our teachers talk about times to collaborate, PLCs, and looking at analyzing data. So you've seen those things. Tonight we're going to share other things that you'll see and hear in this monitoring report. So indicator 11.1 specifically, I apologize. Tonight, I apologize, trying to be succinct. Tonight, I have with me our Director of Secondary Education, Amy Ingram, and our Director of Special Education, Dr. Helber, and they'll be co-presenting with me tonight. So I will pass it to Dr. Helber. She will talk to us about OE 11.1. Amy will talk to us about several others, and then I'll wrap it up. I have one slide. So OE1 reads that 100% of students with IEPs will have a tiered service delivery model. We measured this by looking at IEP meetings that were held and when the IEPs were implemented prior to the prior school year and the previous IEP expiration date. What I can say is that every student within our district who has an IEP had an annual IEP this year. Of that, 98% of the meetings were held within the time frame. So just to give you an idea of the kind of how many IEPs we've had, we had 798 IEP meetings. That does not include initial evaluations where they were not found eligible. And that has 485 students. So we have multiple IEP meetings for our students throughout the school year for many of our students. And so when I think about why we didn't do the compliance of 100%,
there was some confusion about more of the technical aspects of the dates. It gets very technical on when exactly you have to implement. And some of our new staff were not meeting that date. And so we have some leaderships put in place for next year that I'll go over to make sure that that doesn't happen again. The other thing that I wanted to just emphasize on this one is the tiered level of supports. So IEPs offer individualized tiered services based really on the student needs. In the evidence that we shared last week, I outlined the tiered service delivery model, as well as I gave you a variety of MLSS interventions and resources that we use, as well as all students within the district. And so all students receiving special ed have access to universal services that are available to all of our students. And when additional support is needed, the IEP team meets and they discuss the academic, behavioral, and social emotional needs of the students. And then interventions are really selected based on the data, and we really look at the root cause analysis, which is directly in the IEP as a disability related need. And then they are implemented, and then we just keep following that cycle until we find that we have found an IEP program that really meets the student's success. So looking at our leadership moves for next year, so that when I'm up here next year, I can say we have 100% compliance. We have a plan for staff professional development within our PLCs on those late start Mondays, once a month, specifically for all of our special education staff. And what we're going to be focusing on is a service delivery model, so more of that adaptive work. We also, at the beginning of the school year, have a plan to really help all of our staff outline the due dates of their IEPs and put those on the calendars, and then our principals will know that, we will know that, and we'll be able to easily monitor that ahead of time. And so we'll be doing that on the forefront. And then lastly, for the individuals that did not meet the timelines and for our new staff, we have a program support teacher who really focuses on compliance, and she will be working closely with the staff to make sure that our IEPs are staying in compliance and kind of giving that coaching along with that. So those are our 3 leadership moves, so that when I come back next year, we'll be at 100%.
I have a quick question. I won't put you on the spot to answer now. When I'm seeing the number of IEPs that we're working with in the district, just at some point, what would be like a standard percentage? And are we at like a standard percentage? And that's certainly not a question that I would expect you to have that number. Okay.
Our overall percentage of students with IEPs in the district is 8.1, 8.2%. From a state level, it usually runs around 12 to 14%. So we are still under the overall state average, but our numbers have been increasing with COVID. We've had more and more evals for the past year.
Wow, I did not expect those numbers to be right at the tip of your fingers. So thank you.
Academic services doesn't mess around.
Yeah.
So indicators 2 and 3, which are specific to our course offerings for our secondary students and our process with which they express their interest in the courses they would like to take. So indicator 2 is an area that we marked as compliant. A course guide outlining academic opportunities will be distributed to and or made available online to all secondary students. So at the middle school level, beginning in 6th grade, our 6th grade students actually take the wheel courses. They take 4 exploratory courses each quarter. So they take art, empowerment, justice and joy, info tech, and family and consumer ed. And that's standard across all of our 6th grade students. The choice students have in 6th grade is music. So students get to opt into a different music class in 6th grade. And so there's a forum, and our 6th grade music staff go down to each of our elementary schools and detail through our music selections for our rising 6th grade students for them to be able to make those selections. And there's course guide
to accompany that. Our 7th and 8th grade students have a bit more choice. They continue with their music selections, but then they also get to decide which of those areas that they explored in 6th grade, do they want to dive a bit deeper into? Are they really excited about infotech, and now they want to take that a step further, or any of those other areas of electives? And so there's a course guide for both our 7th and our 8th grade students as well, for both Badger and Savannah, as well as for Knowledge, because middle school students access the same school-wide courses as Badger. At the high school level, you've seen our course guide before. We're very proud of the revisions that we made for our course guide this year. Of course, we like that it's aesthetically pleasing, and most importantly, we wanted to make it more interactive and more accessible for our students. So excited that this can be translated into Spanish or other languages and accessible for students in France, but also online. So that's been the work of our course guide this year. When we think about our next steps, while we're proud of our course guide, specifically at high school, we also recognize that it's 152 pages. And that's a lot of unique course offerings. And as we'll talk about in the process for our next steps, we are recognizing now that we have some courses that have not had interest, or when we haven't been able to run them for multiple years. And I know that that can be frustrating for students to get excited about a course and think it's going to run, and be one of 2 or 3 students who are interested in that course. And so a next step with us when we think about our course guide for 24-25, we'll be really going back and looking at the data to interrogate the process of what are our course offerings and what students' voice and student data informs that process. And we continue to want to offer a variety of courses for our students. Right now, our teachers make new course proposals, but we want to make sure that we can elevate student voice in that. What courses are students interested in? What courses align best to their 4-year plans? That we can make sure that our offerings really are aligned to what students want, and again, centering that process within our students. So that's indicator 2, specific to the course guide itself. Indicator 3 then takes us into a bit more about the process that our students at the secondary level go through to select their courses, and then how we use that data to create our master schedule to support those selections. So at the middle school level, it's pretty simple. Our 6th graders fill out one form with their music selection and turn it in, and we base their classes off of that. At 7th and 8th grade, we actually give students a Google form, and they, along with their course guide and then their families, they rank each of our school-wide course offerings, 1 to 8, however many there are, in order of their preference for how interested they are in accessing one of those different courses, recognizing that some are year-long and some are a semester. So students submit that. Our student services team and our scheduling teams review all that data and work diligently to give the students as many of their first 2, 3 choices as possible. Of course, space, availability, staffing, class sizes are all factors in that process, but our teams are really committed to helping students to get access to the courses that they're most interested in as well. At the high school level, there's an additional layer that we add to that process. So at the high school level, we put out our course guide in January. We had our big program and pathways showcase this year, where students could learn about here are all the offerings that we have. And then students at the beginning of February make a course request. So they go through the course guide and they actually make some requests. Here are the classes that I'd like to take that align to my graduation requirements and future plans, career goals, etc. We also ask them to choose alternates. If I don't get those courses, what might be my next tier of classes that I'd be most interested in? The next phase then is the high school compiles all that data similar to the middle schools, and they review, here's the student data about the courses, and we determine which courses should run and which courses and how many sections of each of those courses will run. Again, we need to factor in things like class size, space availability, course sequencing. That we recognize that, especially for something like a world language, if a student's trying to get 4 years of a world language to go to college, we need to be able to offer that 4th class for them in that sequence. How can we think creatively to make that happen and to problem solve around that? So the team does not take those decisions lightly by any means, and works to try to reflect what are the needs of the students, what are the students saying through their course requests, and how can we allocate our resources to them. Through that process this year, we added a total of 48 sections for next year. So of the 15 departments with different course offerings, 11 of those departments saw increases in section numbers. 4 of those departments saw slight decreases. No department lost more than 2 sections. So that's really the second phase in building out that master schedule. The additional layer for the high school comes kind of in the third phase. So the high school team felt very strongly several years ago about voice and choice for our students and helping to build student agents. So we actually at this point go back and we have the master schedule built. We know exactly what time geometry is going to be. We know what that science is going to be. And we open that back up for our high school students to make a schedule request this time. So this time then they see, here are the courses I selected. Here's the times of day and the semesters that they'll be offered. Now I'm going to think about myself as a learner and think about maybe I'm best at math at early in the morning. So I'm going to sign up for geometry first hour. That will be best. Or maybe I'm an athlete in a spring sport. I'm going to take the tougher class first semester when I think that I can focus on. And we allow students to actually make a request with the classes that they've already chosen and to build those into their schedule. From there, then we also want to think about how we reduce barriers for students. So something that came out of the leadership move that we made this year was we recognized that for some students in the process, there were barriers in the way that our schedule was created that didn't allow them to access all of the different spaces they wanted to, specifically students in our focus groups. So when we think about some of our multilingual learners, they wanted to be in tree biology as part of their programming, but also needed to be in a supported section of veterinary science. They're scheduled at the same time, then they're losing access likely to veterinary science, which might be their area. And so this year in that process, before we open it up for all students to make their schedule requests, we actually had our special ed team and our multilingual team come together and determine what were all the sections across all of our classes that we could support. And how do we then prioritize and allow those students to schedule first? So we knew that they would gain access and we weren't creating inequitable barriers to them being able to get the classes that they were most interested in and that would help to support their course design. When we think about connections to other result policies, I was here a few months ago presenting about our 2.2.1 for CTE. We have creative performing arts coming up later this month. And when we think about what are our leadership moves to make sure that students in our focus group can increase access to those spaces, this was one of the really intentional leadership moves to make sure we weren't creating barriers to students being able to access those spaces, specifically for students in our focus groups.
Is there a similar, you kind of talked about the choices at like 7th and 8th, and then all this extra information at the high school and wow, the complexity. So I just hearing all the words, I can imagine the staffing, the hours, the moving parts. How does that look? So if I'm a 7th grader giving my ranked choices, is there similar ways of trying to navigate, gosh, with too many students, these are the only sections we can have, and how, so hopefully the answer is short, but curious how parallel that is to all that you just described about high school when it comes to middle school.
Yes, I think it's slightly simpler at the middle school level. The first guy's on 152 pages, so that helps a little bit. But working with our program support teachers and our CC staff, as well as our multilingual program staff, to determine where they can provide support, where we can cluster students to, again, give students as many of their top choices in middle school as possible. We know how important those are the classes that students are looking forward to often, and we want to make sure that we can give them access and that there's not barriers that we're unnecessarily putting up for them. So that's a lot about the team collaboration and bringing those teams together to again center those needs first and foremost before we build out the rest of the pieces. So with that, then after students make their scheduling request, it really goes to the last phase, which is where we are right now, and our student services team reviewing all of those schedule requests, making sure that one of the sections of geometry isn't 13 while the other one's 30, balancing specific numbers, looking at graduation requirements, and making any specific accommodations that we need for any individual students at that point. So overall, I think our high school scheduling process and our middle school scheduling process too, we don't necessarily guarantee that every student is going to get 100% of their top choices. And that's why we have the alternate process as well. But we do appreciate that we have this added layer where students get to go back in and make their schedule request. So our students knew in April whether the course they wanted was going to run or not. Maybe the course they signed up for that they were really excited about isn't going to run. But now we already know that in April, we can work with their counselor. We've come up with lots of creative solutions. We've combined some classes.
I worked with the team, we actually moved a classroom because we find a bigger space to accommodate more students. We worked with some students to find access to classes at Madison College or other areas in the community to make sure that we can meet those students' needs and continue to support their interests, even if the class that they were most interested in isn't able to move forward this year. So overall, that's really what our scheduling process looks like. When we think about our leadership needs moving forward, we made some key shifts this year in the way that we approach that and with our teams and how we schedule, with the thought that we wanted to remove some of these barriers to access. And so as we enter next year, we'll be thinking about getting feedback from students on how that felt, what that looked like, how we can continue to prioritize their voice and give them access. And of course, then we should also see the effects of this in our other results policies and how students continue to access the different areas of interest. So I'll just name here and then I won't talk about it on the next time. The exact same indicator comes up again in 11.4 about helping students to ensure that we can allow them to develop their talents in their specific areas of interest. And this process and the way that we've gone about it and help students to think through that and added those specific core sections really I think speaks to that as well. So I'll pause there for the secondary piece.
First, I just want to say the scheduling process is a huge lift and just really, really appreciate that work. That's the priority scheduling process is just enormous. And I think scheduling seems so easy if you're just looking at it the first time until you, oh my gosh, like doing 12 Rubik's Cubes at the same time. So really, thank you.
All right, 11.2, indicator 1 and indicator 2. Both speak to 100% of the curriculum for all subjects not listed, and 100. Sorry, driving. A remote control. All right, 11.2, indicator 100% of the Common Core state standards are reflected in the literacy and mathematics curriculum. And then 100% of the curriculum for all subjects not listed above our line will stop at state standards. At the beginning of each year, we present our academic standards for you all's approval. And so the document and all of our standards are listed. Again, you all approve those at the beginning of the school year, and it's reflected in the document that you all will provide for your review. OE 11.3, indicator 1. Annually, the superintendent will create and communicate the district assessment calendar each academic year. What you see is the elementary assessment calendar and the secondary assessment calendar. And both of these calendars are comprehensive in that they include both our multilingual and our special education assessments. So you'll see both access and then the assessments that our special education students participate in. So it's a full comprehensive assessment calendar. OE 11.4 indicator 1. That is the indicator that Amy referenced and shared information on. OE 11.4 indicator 2. Very excited that Marcy was able to foreshadow this when we just heard the presentation. But this speaks specifically to a question within the district-wide survey where we ask our students specifically, do they have voice and choice? And 61% of our students say that when given a choice, they are able to, they're able to have a choice and to select things of interest. And so specifically if asked to write a report, they can choose their topic. And so 61% of our students say that they have a choice, 12% say that they disagree, and then 26% say that they didn't understand the question. And so we attribute that maybe to some of our third graders in their first chance at taking the survey. One of the things that we said we'll do is dig a little deeper and look at, okay, are those third graders, who are those students that are saying they don't understand, just so we can perhaps figure out perhaps maybe better how to explain the question so that we can decrease that number. OE 11.5, all proposals for new and innovative
Innovative programs will include an evaluation process aligned to our results policies. So, two pieces of evidence along with additional evidence that is cited in the executive summary. We shared with you our process and consideration for district-wide adoption of Someday. That's a curricular resource that we're using in 3rd grade through 5th grade. And then we also spoke to our technology app request. It's a vetting form that we use when we vet all of our technology apps. And then again, as I referenced, we spoke to asynchronous and our asynchronous learning in the executive summary. OE 11.6, this speaks to our acceptable use policy. And so at the beginning of this, when families enroll, all of our families, in order to complete their registration, they must complete the acceptable use policy. So in order to complete their registration, they must complete, cannot move any further in the registration without completing this. So we can certainly assure you that 100% of our families have completed it, or you would not sit in enrollment schools. OE, yes.
I'll take 11.7. You're at 11.7?
Yes.
I'll take it. So if you go to 11.7, and the reason that I wanted to go a little bit deeper on instructional minutes, because I did make, we as an organization, made a decision to still respect and honor the indicator that was originally written, but we were reporting it based off Wisconsin DPI minutes. And the rationale for that is if you see the original language of the indicator that was written last year was based off averages of 1,080 for grades 9 through 12 and averages of 1,000 hours for students. I think we got, in all respect for everything we're trying to accomplish this year, I think we got a little fancy. And instead of sticking with the Wisconsin DPI standards as written. So while we were in compliance based on the indicator, I don't think it's a great example of what we were truly monitoring this year. So if we want to provide the actual DPI minutes, and you saw that even some of those schedule adjustments as today, when we send out the information that we do to our significant inclement weather situations, that we still need to add additional minutes, which affected our bus schedule today. So for the DPI minimum hours, which is measured not as we're reflecting the indicator as 1 through 8 or 9 through 12, they're actually measured as K through 6 and 7 through 12. All right, so the K through 6 hours are 1,050, 7 through 12 are 1,137. We did hit those instructional minutes, and note that we went over in 6th grade minutes because our model is that middle school is 6 through 8. So I just want to provide clarification and definitely not ever want to be dismissive of an original indicator, but hey, we just saw a need to just better align to DPI. While still acknowledging we did hit the indicator as written. We do, as per you read in the executive summary, have a suggestion to the board that we know the board only has the ability to take action that we actually switch our minutes to be aligned exactly to the way they're stated at Wisconsin DPI, and leave that for the board to as a choice and desire that you will bring that back to you as we do in our indicator process for consideration. Thank you.
The last two indicators, actually the last indicator is OE 11.7. The district calendar will reflect a minimum of 180 school days available to students in the school year. And the evidence provided is the academic calendar for this year and the academic calendar for next year. So you see the academic calendar and it reflects 180 days, and then the academic calendar for next school year, it reflects 180 days. This concludes OE 11.7. What questions do you all have around OE 11.7?
Questions from the board? Go ahead, John.
I have a question. I probably should have asked earlier, I just didn't think of it. When we were talking about IEPs, do we do any sort of similar tracking around like how we offer section 514 supports and how well utilized those offerings are?
I can pull that, I don't have it up.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, we have the same type of a tracking system.
And similarly, I'm just learning some of this, a behavior intervention plan, so a BIP, right, I'm hearing, is that a tier 3 also? If something gets crafted to be a BIP, is that something that's considered tier 3?
It can be a 2-2.
Okay, okay.
Because, FBA, functional behavioral analysis, is first. And then you write a behavior intervention plan. And for some, that is available for students with and without IEPs. It's a simplified version for students without IEPs, and it's a little bit more in depth for students with IEPs.
I just have a comment that I appreciate the narrative that now, especially with this one, at the very beginning, that kind of dives into each indicator. So, I mean, and I think in complement to what you're all doing, it just gives us full, right, some background to augment what we're gonna hear from you, right, out loud in the presentation, but I just appreciate the chance to read about some of those leadership moves and things kind of behind the scenes. So just lifting up the work that goes into that foreshadowing at the start of the document, I appreciate that a lot.
I want to piggyback off of that, like, just to recognize the tremendous lift that, like, a lot of this administrative work has been to build these systems from, like, out of nothing almost. And, you know, having all this data is great, but like seeing the workings behind it and the accountability behind it has just been awesome. I mean, from tracking the IEPs, so like I had a student going through high school stuff and being able to tell her to just chill out and people know what they're doing. And that works through this process that works was really awesome. So as you know, I can appreciate that this was a really big lift to build a lot of this. It's nice to see.
Well, and maybe just to feedback again, like from a aspect of transparency, like anyone in the community can access these. And so I feel like, right, how we dialogue at the board table, this is not the great mystery of like, look at the things we're looking at, you can't see it, that, you know, right, this is open for everyone to be able to appreciate and acknowledge and dig in deeply to all the things that we're talking about, which is also really amazing in terms of community access and understanding to all of this.
If you want to know what we teach, if you want to know what's offered,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah, and what's being measured and all the data that's being shared, and so just the access to that, I think is really a great thing our district is doing, so.
Silly this question you're gonna be asked all.
Yeah.
With regards to class choice,
Mhm.
is it first come, first served?
So we built a priority model this year, where we invited our focus group students, students with IEPs, our multi-language learners, and students who were not on track for graduation, so maybe for credit attainment, to actually schedule first. Recognizing that we talk about our equity framework, dismantling systemic barriers. Sometimes with systemic barriers, like I mentioned, with students not being able to get through supported sections, actually putting their needs first and allowing them access is how we approached it. And from there, then it went, after that process, then it went by grade. Your for rising seniors or rising juniors, rising sophomores. Not silly at all.
Any other questions from the board? I just wanted to make one comment, especially after we concluded all of our site visits, and I really wanted to say thank you to all of our administrators, to our staff at the sites. It's amazing really to see how these OEs and the results policies are embedded now in the culture of each site, to see how, you know, instructional programs that accommodate personal goals. We have amazing things going on in our schools. And I think just all of us, as we've been able to be at each site, have just been truly amazed at the work that's going on, and really impressive, really impressive. I think someone had asked, you know, well, we're kind of seeing the things that are programmed, but as we were here at the, you know, at the high school, you turn in the corner and there's Mr. Rubo, with like this whole area wide open for gaming, and it was packed with kids, like everybody's finding an outlet. And it was such a just we were just leaving. And then we see this like really fantastic, another on top of all of the wonderful things we've seen. So it's really just some really authentic, deep work that's going on, and just really grateful to all the work that's going on behind the scenes, because it is not without really paying off huge dividends for our kids. So just really, again, thank you.
All right. We will include this one and we'll invite Rosa Maria Larson.
Do we want to do this or do we want to do them all at one time? Okay.
Before we get on.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, with this, so is there a motion to approve the, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna lose my OE 11 as presented? There's a motion from Jen. Is there a second? Second from Corby. Okay, from the board's perspective, is there anything that we want to discuss as a matter of whether or not we approve? Or have any comments about the report as presented?
I just have a procedural question. Are we voting on that change to the indicator in 1127, or is that going to come later?
Okay, I didn't have any board action at this time.
Are you asking me a question about 504s? I'd be interested in seeing the data, but other than that, it's not an indicator. It's great.
Anything else? Okay, we have a motion in a second. All in favor of approving OE 11 as presented, signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? OE 11 has been approved as presented. Thank you so much.
So we can now move to. Yes.
Whirlwind.
Yes, we're so we're gonna have Rosa Maria Lerner, our director of homelessness programs. Today, who is our program manager for second year, and they will jump right in. Talk to you about world languages and share some exciting and riveting information. They didn't meet me better. My name is Rosa Maria Larson. I'm the director of multilingual programs, and I'm Stephanie Venegas. I'm the secondary multilingual program coordinator. And this evening will be reporting to our results policy R 2.2.6 on world languages. So. Okay, so the purpose of the result policy are two listed here, and this evening we'll be focusing on the personalized goals in the area of world languages. Here's the interpretation of the result policy, and I want to especially highlight the second paragraph, where it says that we will prepare scholars to the global economy. The reality is, our scholars is that the world has never been more interconnected, and they deserve opportunities to learn skills necessary to grow on a global scale. So this is not only for communication skills, but also developing culture, connections, and comparison and community, all which come through learning additional learning. And here's the interpretation. And here's the definition of terms that is generally used throughout all of the policy. So you'll notice indicator one, we only listed Verona area high school, and the reason is because VPI recently had some updates in the last year that defined world language participation, which includes our students in participating in two immersion programs, Verona area international school as well. And since these are partner choice programs, and not all of our primary and middle school students have access to these courses, we thought that would affect us. So we just wanted to focus on the school where the students, all the students have options to enroll in these language courses. And just for definition, advanced courses includes courses that are advanced placement, dual credit with college credit attached to it, and then courses for students that have gone through the AIS program as well as the immersion. And then when the number of scholars in the whole school was 10, we did not report just to be in line with all of the other reporting that we've done. And however, if we look at the number of workers increasing, the ones that are more than 10, you can see that in general, our students are enrolled in language courses. And then for our scholarship, we advanced world language courses, again, I'm not reporting on the ones that have fewer than 10, and they're focused. But we are seeing the percentage of students taking advanced courses increasing.
That's the question. So I understand the context of keeping this at the high school, though there is at least an offering an option of something with language. Is that correct? At 7th and 8th, I know the language is by location, so I'm getting the sense there's a bit of a difference between our middle schools then. Is that fair? Okay, so that's, because I'm feeling that underneath this is, and you know, in seeing how many students end up making a leap to an advanced language course, my hunch is that perhaps there was a start at the middle school level. So though I see the context for high school only, how this continues to grow and build, so we can, I think, be lifting up what happens when any student has access to language, perhaps at middle school. I think it would be interesting to see how that ties.
You know, in the pathways where students that go through the immersion, international school, they continue their language studies all throughout secondary. We do start students in 7th and 8th grade, and that's how they get into these courses that you know, school.
Yeah.
Thank you. Indicator 2, we're talking about the STAMP assessment. The STAMP is based on the academic standards, which is world language standards and Wisconsin are based on those. And we included everyone who took the STAMP test because at the high school level, only our students pursuing the SEAL fighter was doing the test. So we wanted to give a better indication of how we're doing in general, including all our students who are in immersion, who are in the international school, and then also pursuing SEAL literacy. And you can see that number has increased. Now, just to let you know that the STAMP test itself personally does not have benchmark for proficiency. So what we did is that we took the requirements of the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. This said the requirements for SEAL literacy is intermediate high. So any student who has reached intermediate high is really listed here as having that proficiency. So with the number showing it might be 162 students took the test, some might still be in 6th grade. Or 7th, like, so it's not just high school.
Okay. So that number would be expected to be a bit lower.
It'll go up hopefully next year.
Right,
Because then like students are moving up in grades. And that's the only thing we can notice, that although the indicator 2 is world language evidence, STAMP is not a test taken by all students who are taking a world language class.
Right. Is that an indicator then from your perspective that maybe is worth discussing? I mean, right, I'm thinking about, right, the data you're showing us and even the language of what DPI calls proficient, what, you know, all of that, yeah, if we get this space to revisit for the benefit of data matching what your story is that you're trying to tell. Yeah.
And then just showing you the focus groups, any group that have fewer than 10 students, we do not report on, just to stay consistent. But in general, for the ones that we did report, we did see an increase. The students who have reached that intermediate high level over last year. Indicator 3, we did not meet. And the reason for that is that we had fewer students with those SEAL filers. And out of those students who did pursue them, the percentage of them, you know, because of numbers, 9 versus 11, but we had 18 that ended, so that the percentage is a little low.
1%.
Are those all seniors? Is that when that is officially being measured? So indicator 3 is seniors.
But the SEAL, they can take the test junior year. If they don't score, then they can take it again senior year. And there's other parts to becoming to earning the SEAL, but this is based off of the STAMP test, and that's how they earn the SEAL. We have some good news. Recently, DPI changed the requirements for the SEAL filers that are aligned with Wisconsin world language standards. And that there was a component of social cultural competency that, we expect our students to provide us evidence. However, because the Wisconsin language, the world language standards have that already included, students taking the courses don't need to present that because just by completing the course, they've met that. So one of the results is that we just increase the students. So for example, next year we already had 30 scholars who are pursuing the field residency. 13 of them have already met the requirements, so they will be taking that next year. Another leadership move that we made was streamlining the Wisconsin requirements now, but also offering that opportunity to students who are speaking American Sign Language. That's very university with several American students have taken that test. And some of them have met it, but because they're juniors, next year. So that's great.
And then one change as well with the change of DPI was when they took out those cultural competences, we didn't go okay with it just being a test to get the seal. So we kind of kept some of it. What we did is that what we're keeping is things that students are working in their language class that they were going to present. So as opposed to before, it was, I think, for books in the partner language and write 4 book reports, and there was a bunch of other requirements. Now it's just you're submitting work that you've done in your language class for your seal, as long as you're 20 hours. I think it is a volunteer working with the language.
Just out of curiosity, I know we only are tracking data just back at the year before, but just historically, I mean, does the number kind of fluctuate a little bit with students? I mean, we see a 1% drop? I just want to know, is that context 1% here and there? Is that something that is concerning to you? Or is that just, this is a normal fluctuation?
It is a normal fluctuation. One of our goals is to increase our earnings with others, especially as we have our students who are moving up through the grades and immersion. That's a natural scholars that we would want to get sealed by literacy, as well as increasing the number of students from the international school who are earning that. So there's some things that we have to attend to in the undergrades to get them to that.
So speak to the work that they are doing to raise awareness. So some
Yeah,
of this
yeah,
is our students really didn't know that this was available to them, so they really been doing a good job to help students know and understand the benefit of this. So I think that too will also help to make our students want to earn this. This is a really prestigious kind of
Wow. And I'm sure for that. Yeah, I'm very jealous. And something we added this year was we did present our 8th graders because it's something that bring that grades. And next year we will have, we actually have it live now, but it's very hard to find on the high school website, but we created a website so parents can also go in and get information. And then coming June 14th, it'll go live with a Google sheet where students who are interested can already start filling out an interest form, and that way the school advisor will already have their names and get things, and this upcoming student will also be presenting for our added classes.
It seems like this might be one area where a percentage indicator isn't the right indicator. If the goal is to increase the raw number of students earning that might be a better way to measure it.
So again, our environment is small. We're doing the report, and this year we had 9 students who earned it in one district. I'm very proud of them, but so a better indicator would be numbers, especially for our Latinx and our Hispanic students who speak Spanish at home, and they in the past, if you go back to the this number here, the 10 out of the 11 students were Latinx descent. So that percentage is going to decrease as the number of students earning and still increase. So we don't want to lose sight of that. Numbers wise, they may be later numbers in that, but it's not the percentage going down the
And one comment I just wanted to make, when you just talking about this number that I love how the indicators are driving. These are the tangible moves that are being made, just in service of the results that we have. And I appreciate that we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. It's like, okay, that's great. It's really nice to hear that these are all intentional, choices that are direction, of the results policies. So thanks for pointing that out.
Then we just wanted to acknowledge our students who have earned the seal by their students. And they were recognized at the senior awards night. Them to the board and show you their students who have very high levels of academic language in 2 or more.
So that is quite impressive. No question. Thank you. This is really, it's great to see. It was like, again, in the site visits, it's great to see our language programs throughout the different levels and just some amazing work. Fantastic students are benefiting. Thank you.
Thank you, team. Before we turn over to the board, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to thank our leaders and Lisette and Rosemaria that were here in front of you. We also have Mrs. Nas, Alexis Nas, who has made a wonderful team. And this is just a small sample of the commitment to excellence they've had for our multilingual education. So I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the vast improvements and appreciation for everything they've done in support of our language learners and how they continue to make us all better educators and leaders because of that extreme focus of multilingual education. So thank you, team.
Thank you. We all echo that. Okay, so with that, is there a motion to accept the monitoring report for R 2.2.2 as presented? So moved. The motion from Jen. Is there a second? Second from Dorby. Okay, any questions from the board?
I just want to make a comment quick, just so we can, a year from now, when we're doing this again.
Yeah.
This report illustrates really well some of the reasons why I've been hesitant to use this increasing metric, because these results from a statistical standpoint are phenomenal.
Right.
And I don't want to see the district punished a year from now for not replicating like these amazing results, these huge increases we get. So it's marks, then giving us timestamp links so we can go back and say that here.
Yeah, Lord.
Yeah, I would reiterate that too. I think this is one of those, are we using the right measure? So this is fantastic and it is exciting to see the results that are being achieved. Are there any other comments from the board? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of accepting monitoring report for R 2.2.2 as presented, signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? It has been accepted as presented. Thank you so much, everyone. I've got to go back in my 20 tabs from the presentation, get back to the agenda. Thank you then. Okay.
That closes the half hour superintendent
That's
report.
kind of a mix. We got some board action in there. And it looks like the only thing that we have for board action left our board updates. So I think first of all, again, we just want to extend our gratitude for all of the site visits and the information that we were able to see and really just the fantastic work. And so that was hugely valuable to me. This has been a busy month, quite honestly. Nicole, would you give an update about what you've been up to?
Yeah, I would love to. I had the pleasure, was that last week, before, to join Abby Hong and Hope Nicholson, who are educators and advisors to the AAPI group here at the high school, to go down to the state capitol and join what felt like 150 other people. Luckily, we all got there very early, so we were able to speak a little earlier. But we were able to speak on the AAPI and Hmong inclusion bill. something that's being entertained at the state level, to include the teaching of those histories, and what those cultures have contributed, to the United States within US history, along with Hispanic and Black history. And it was really great to see not only our teachers and educators speak, but there were 8 students as well, I believe. And all of them spoke with strong voices and fires in their bellies, but very well articulated, which I expected nothing less. It was not even necessary for me to join and speak. But it was really just so impressive. Someone there even said, well, we have a whole group from Verona here, so you can all just go together. So one by one, they came up and spoke, and it was just such a great experience. And also great to say that we were the first board in Wisconsin to add that and ratify that within our school structure. So just a huge thank you to Cabby and Hope, who helped really make sure that those students' voices are heard, and that they're finding out how to become involved in their local, like, I never went to my state capital when I was in high school and learned how to speak at a public hearing. So it was really great. So thank you to both of them and all of the students.
And thank you to you for working with the moderators. So we really appreciate that. Really, so really does. Absolutely, Candy. So, and then you were also at, we had a board governance meeting with Dane County. So I think we'll have a workshop probably on some of the content, but Jen, do you want to give an update on that?
Yeah, I mean, just to lift up to the community that when we embraced a new superintendent, we also really wanted to embrace sort of a new way of doing our business. And so it's really great to have these learning spaces so we can keep growing and how to really meet around policy, and just to hear and learn from other districts near us that have been doing the work a bit longer than we have. So I think we're brainstorming, workshop sharing, more community engagement, continuing to be able to educate the community and everyone about kind of what this looks like, this sort of structure and how we function. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the survey piece that we were also contemplating to kind of go with the Hanover group of just kind of quick snapshots of, finger on the pulse kind of things that we might be thinking about as a board, and in combination with administration to just be able to get more regular feedback on how the community sort of use the work that we're doing. So lots of really great ideas always, and then to have the time to kind of brainstorm further about what we're going to do and all of that. But yeah, it was like a great time.
It's very fun, very for hosting. Yeah, that was really great. Yeah.
We want Carlos with us as well, and Lori, our
Thank
state
you, Lori.
and she was there to partner with us. So we appreciate your time too, in going. So thank you. And Dr. Clarity, we appreciate that. We appreciate it. This is one of the, we have a pamphlet by everybody. Just this is something that Sun Prairie did for to kind of explain the governance. So this was just a handout that they had that was kind of a cool piece, especially if we're talking about communication and maybe how are we informing our community about what the work that we're doing. So we just had this as a sample just for something for the board to look at. So again, Nicole, Jen, Juan Carlos, really appreciate you being able to go. I enjoyed it. And we'll look forward to kind of sharing out some additional information as we go. One other thing I wanted to comment on, just in service of our students looking to continuous growth and lifelong learners, we want to call out our own John Porco for getting his doctorate degree. We're really impressed, and I know this is horrifying to you. All one. No, really, truly, it's a huge accomplishment, and you may be mortified, but we are super proud of you. And really, it's such a great example for our students to know that just education is a lifelong pursuit and truly worthy. Congratulations, really, that's a huge accomplishment. So,
Thank you very much.
any other board updates? You're like moving.
That's always fun to get married, but
Oh, I didn't say she wanted to wait till it was done.
I was too personal or
yeah, no problem.
Let's wait till the 20th so we can. But we're excited for this weekend. So, I know we have a lot going on this weekend, so we have
Yes.
graduation and maybe somebody getting married. Just very excited.
South Carolina. So, right back.
Wish you every happiness. Yeah, and I think you might be the only one to convince your significant other to actually come to board meetings, so. We've been, well done, you.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. Okay, so back to board work, sorry. So with that, can we take a look at our superintendent consent agenda? First of all, do we have any public comment? There is no public comment left. So we can move on to superintendent consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the items in the consent agenda? Any questions? The superintendent consent agenda has been approved as presented. We can move on to board consent agenda. There's a number of things in the board consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review? Just as a reminder, if there's ever a time that anyone wants to pull an item out of the consent agenda item for further discussion, we can do that at any point on a motion. Otherwise, again, consent agenda items are typically just standard board business, either things that we've already discussed and we need to effectuate. It's kind of our legal obligations. Are there any questions for board consent agenda? Hearing none, the board consent agenda has been approved as presented. Moving ahead to future agenda items, very exciting, we've got graduation, this on June 10th. Congratulations, I know, like, that's Saturday. It is Saturday. I unfortunately will be out of town, but I'm really appreciate board members who could be there and see the culmination of our scholars' time in Verona, and can't wait to see the wonderful things they do as they leave Verona Area School District. So we also have our next meeting on the 20th. So it's Tuesday. We discussed this at our last meeting. We just wanted to highlight it. And then our regular meetings proceed from there. Yes.
For the graduation board members that are in attendance, the conferring will be in the large conference room of the high school. So we confer the diplomas before we go down to the main office.
So that's part of the base, right?
One of the main office, yes, the big glass one. That's all.
Not
That's
yet. You're meeting that? I think it says, I think it's this here.
You don't have to be there early. I'll give you the date.
Okay. Okay.
Madam President, do we have a quorum for the June 20th meeting?
I assumed we did.
Okay.
Am I?
I'm not in attendance and I just wanted to make sure that okay, everybody else. If I didn't know for you. Yeah, you'll be back. Okay, just good.
Okay, if anyone is not going to be able, circle back to me after tonight's meeting. With that, is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? So motion from Nicole, is there a second? Second from Joe, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Tonight's meeting has been adjourned. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Can I start signing on tonight?